Hello, my name is Rachel Tybor, and I'm sorry that the weather has prevented me from giving a speech live to my speech class, who I was very much looking forward to meet. Fortunately, I have my husband and my cat sitting in as an audience today, and because I'm not sure if our instructor Patty is going to be showing this to the class or not, I'm going to go ahead and leave in some of my attention-getting questions and hope that my husband participates as the class would have had I been directing this to you all live. So before I get started today, I was just hoping to see by a show of hands, as many of you in this class, everyone is either a student midwife, nurse, or mother, if I remember correctly from our bios. So I was wondering if I could see by a show of hands, who of you among you have had experience with some of these postpartum ailments. Now, some of them are more common than others, but it's just a good place to start off. So let me see if you or someone you know, perhaps a woman in your community, was ever affected by postpartum psychosis. Anyone? All right, how about a postpartum hemorrhage? All right, and what about postpartum depression? You know, this actually affects 80% of women, so this one's a lot more common. Or how about problems with breast milk coming in on time? Okay, that's another common one. And lastly, if you haven't raised your hand yet, how about just a general fatigue, lack of energy, or exhaustion after childbirth? Now that should be pretty much everyone. So today I want to talk to you about something that has been shown to prevent all of these ailments. And believe it or not, every woman brings this with her to her birth, even if she forgets to pack her bag for the hospital or accidentally has the baby on the way to the hospital. She still has this. Does anyone have a guess at what this may be?
Fingernail trimmings.
So we have a guess for fingernail trimmings, but no, the answer is actually her placenta. So today I want to talk to you a little bit about the placenta and placentophagy, which is the consumption of a human placenta. And after we talk about that, I want to go over the benefits. Just why would someone want to do this? And then thirdly, I'm going to discuss what are the different techniques that a woman has for going about consuming her placenta. So first of all, I want to begin with a general overview of the placenta and placentophagy. Now, the placenta is an organ that develops in a woman in pregnancy. It lines her uterus, and it plays the important role of transferring nutrients from her body, her blood system, to the growing baby. And likewise, it transports the waste products from the baby back out through the mother's body. It also facilitates the exchange of gases, oxygen, carbon dioxide, while at the same time keeping the blood systems of the mother and baby separate. Something interesting in reference to this topic is that the word placenta is actually derived from the Latin word for cake, or flat cake. So kind of funny when you're talking about eating your placenta. One more thing I want to highlight about the placenta is that it actually takes over for hormone production for a woman during pregnancy. So before she has her baby, she will have a spike in hormones that she'll have gotten to a point that's 3 times greater amounts of hormones in her body than she's ever experienced previously. And then as she expels the placenta with birth, she drops down to the lowest levels she's ever had. So that really is kind of the scientific explanation for what I'm talking about today when you see this great peak and then dive in these essential chemicals in her body. So now I want to do a brief overview of placentophagy, which, as I mentioned, is the consumption of a human placenta. In many cultures across the globe, there are traditions and symbolisms within the placenta. Right now in the United States, we are one of the only cultures who treats our placentas like medical waste and throws them away. Many cultures will plant the placenta with a tree, and then the tree symbolizes the life of that new human. And in some cultures, such as in China and in traditional Chinese medicine, they do consume the placenta. Now, this isn't only done for women in the postpartum time there. Many people will use these placenta remedies for things such as impotence, infertility, general fatigue, and most popularly as a beauty tonic. And you may be surprised to know that some of the cosmetics you have in your own house actually contain human placenta because it is not regulated very strictly the way they label them on your products. So as I mentioned, you may already have some placenta in your life, but there are certainly cultures across the globe, and in the United States, it's growing in popularity to consume the placenta. So now that you know that people do that, if you didn't before, let's move on to some of the benefits of placentophagy, to ingest the placenta. Just why on earth would someone want to do this? There are many benefits of this, and some of the things I mentioned with those leading questions, you can prevent those things. So I made a visual here, and I'm not sure if it's as clear with the webcam. In fact, it may be reversed. But here are some of the beneficial contents and hormones. I'll kind of go up here in front of the camera and then hang it up as I talk about them. So one of the things I mentioned was postpartum depression and psychosis. The hormones in the placenta that can be attributed to this, well, it's a combination of many of them, but definitely your oxytocin and your prolactin are big players. And I'm sorry, what was that? You have a question? Oh, sorry. All right. We had a question about oxytocin. So oxytocin is the love hormone. This is what mothers experience when they're breastfeeding and bonding with a new child. It's what partners experience when they're falling in love. And it's with us in a lot of these crucial life changes to help decrease our stress levels. Also, prolactin. This hormone is unique. And not only does it promote breastfeeding and the letdown response that a lot of women have when they're breastfeeding, but it also enables us to do repetitive behaviors over and over without them feeling repetitive. So you could see where this really comes in handy for new moms or who would consume their placenta, because they may be doing things over and over, such as feeding their babies, diapering their babies, waking up in the middle of the night. So some of these hormones certainly help, and other ones are being discovered all the time, such as this one at the bottom, the placental opioid enhancing factor. This one was just recently discovered, and it decreases pain. So as I mentioned, some of the benefits include a decrease in postpartum depression, those baby blues that you often hear about, a decrease then in the more advanced stages of that is a postpartum psychosis. The prolactin helps in an increase in breast milk, which is especially helpful for moms who have had cesarean sections or other difficult labors where some of those natural mechanisms have not yet gone into play. And then all of these other, I actually have another handout that I was hoping I could use in the classroom. I'll do another quick spin up. This is the actions of these hormones that I showed you before. So you can see we have immune boosters and ones that decrease pain and increase healing. So overall, we see that moms who have consumed their placenta, they generally have a healing time cut in half compared to other moms, much speedier. And one other thing that some of you who are nurses or midwife students, or perhaps moms who had your babies in the hospital may recognize, is that this oxytocin hormone is also seen, a synthetic form of it is called Pitocin. That's very common in the labor and delivery unit of hospitals. It will be used to induce or augment a labor to speed it up and bring contractions on in labor, but then after labor, I know at least in the Madison hospitals, they'll give mom a shot in the thigh, which helps her uterus contract back down to its regular size. And this is an area where we see that women who consume their placentas, their uteruses get back down to their original size so much faster than any other women. And this could also be used in very extreme life or death situations, such as when a woman is hemorrhaging. I think of it, you know, in a hospital, certainly a nurse will run in with Pitocin, but I've actually heard anecdotal evidence in which the nurse was out getting the Pitocin, the mom was almost going into shock, the dad rubbed his hand on her placenta and put his hand in the mother's mouth, and by the time the nurse came back in the room with the Pitocin, her hemorrhaging had stopped. So the the natural form of oxytocin that we find in the placenta is somehow much more efficient and faster acting than the synthetic form. So now that you know some of these benefits, perhaps you're a little less queasy about this kind of taboo idea and more interested in some of the various ways that a woman can ingest her placenta. I have some of my supplies here because what I didn't yet mention is that I actually offer a placenta encapsulation service to some women, which I'll get to when I talk about encapsulation. But the most obvious way to eat your placenta would be raw. And this is the one that most of us may just be a little too squeamish to consider, but it is not as though you have to eat the entire placenta like a farm animal. You only need a tiny piece about the size of the tip of your pinky finger to get these benefits we've been talking about. If that doesn't sound appetizing, I know many women who have taken these small pieces and put them into a smoothie. Sometimes if someone wants to do a mix of raw and encapsulated, I will cut some pieces and put them in an ice cube tray. So it's very easy for mom or dad to make a smoothie and put one of those ice cubes in that postpartum time. So they're very handy and ready to go. Another way is what I mentioned before, is encapsulation. So for any of you who have been to a health food store, you may have seen these empty capsules before. Oh, I'm getting a hard time focusing on them. But basically they're empty gel caps and you can fill them with anything. Oftentimes people will fill them with different herbal remedies. And the goal of placenta encapsulation is to get the placenta into a form where you can encapsulate it and it will be preserved longer term. So the first step of that would be to rinse the placenta, such as in a strainer. And then you want to steam it, just in a big pot with a basket in there for steaming, both on each side of the placenta for about 20 minutes. And then you want to cut it very finely so that you can put it into a dehydrator, such as this one here. You want to dehydrate it overnight so that the next day you'll have a dry, crumbly, crispy product. And then I use this. This is actually a Magic Bullet blender, if you've seen those before. And this way I can sterilize the blending pieces when I'm done. But I put the dehydrated placenta pieces in here, and then I can grind it on that. And then once I have that fine powder, I put my capsules into this encapsulating machine, line them up, and I pour in the powder, and I close them up. And then when I pop them out, I have the pills that you can just store in any airtight container, such as this. And mom has them easy to go whenever she feels like she's feeling fatigue, or if she's having that problem with her milk coming in, she can just pop a few pills back with a glass of water, and it really takes away that U factor. A few other ways to do it that I'll just briefly mention include tincturing the placenta. Again, you would just take a small piece, and that's when you preserve it in a strong alcohol, such as a grain alcohol. Another way that it's been done throughout time is a homeopathic dosage. So that would be in a purified water where you dilute and dilute and dilute the placenta pieces so that it's almost, you can almost not detect the level of the hormones in there, but women have experienced good results with that as well. And then lastly, I have not tried this, but on the internet is common to find women who have made all sorts of foods with their placentas, ranging from lasagnas to pizza to pretty much anything you would cook on an organ meat with. And similar to organ meat, you can keep it in the fridge for a few days, but after that you really want to freeze it or get it preserved or encapsulated so that you have it in the longer term. And if you do not use it all in those first 2 or 3 weeks postpartum, women certainly like to hang on to those and use them during the toddler years whenever they need a little pick-me-up, because it is kind of a natural euphoric pick-me-up that you get with these pills. And they also really help any hormonal transition. So some women will use them around the time of menstruation, but a lot of women save them for menopause. Sometimes a grandmother will even use her grandchild's placentas to help her through those hormonal imbalances. So now that we know what placentophagy is, its many benefits, and some of the various ways that you can ingest the human placenta. I hope that you use this information perhaps when you're talking with friends or a pregnant woman, if you want to talk about something a little unusual, or you never know when you may find yourself in one of these life or death situations, such as, a woman recently gave birth on an airplane, on an international flight, or, if you get stuck in an elevator and a woman is hemorrhaging, now you can just cut off a tiny piece of her, whether it be the cord or the placenta. It may still sound a little gross when we talk about it now, but if it's a life or death situation and all it takes is a tiny pea-sized amount of someone's placenta to save their lives, it will certainly be a great little piece of knowledge to have. So thank you so much for your attention, and I'm sorry again that I don't get to hear everyone else's speeches, but I hope that you've enjoyed mine. Thank you. Did not stop. Stop.